You have all sort of craziness going on with the use of the military for partisan purposes. A federal judge has struck down Donald Trump's commandeering of the National Guard in California, ordering him to back off. That decision came down on yesterday. Now, of course, Trump administration appealed the decision, and so the appeals court has stayed that decision until they actually hear the case. But it is one of the things that people are talking about in terms of his use of the military for his purpose. Earlier this week, he spoke at Fort Bragg, a very partisan speech that he gave, and now we also know that the military base told Trump and his team they could not use a pop-up store selling MAGA gear, but they were overruled. This is absolutely outrageous. Joining us right now is Maryland Governor Wes Moore, of course, a veteran. He understands very well what U.S. Army rules and regulations are when it comes to these type of things. And Governor, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Just as a, let's not talk the capacity of a governor, but as somebody who served this country, it has to be offensive to you to watch how this man is using the military, and they're using the language of his troops, his army. That's not how presidents have often referred to members of the military.
And I just believe that one of the most important jobs of the President of the United States is to serve as Commander-in-Chief. Right. It's one of the most important and frankly, one of the most sobering responsibilities for any president of the United States is that you are the commander-in-chief of the world's most powerful army and military. And there's a level of humility that needs to come with that I just think that this president does not absorb. He doesn't do humility. And frankly, watching him give a partisan speech in front of a unit, that was my old unit. When I was in Afghanistan, I served in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne Division. And to see the same paratroopers with the same patch that I wore on my shoulder, then standing there as props while he is giving a hyper-partisan speech, while he is blasting their former commander-in-chief, President Joe Biden, was just a deeply embarrassing moment in our nation. And, it just continues to highlight the lack of seriousness that I think that he is taking, not just this role of president, but frankly, the lack of seriousness in terms of the role of president of commander-in-chief.
One of the things that of course, that the federal judge decided in California that it was illegal with how he commandeered the National Guard. You are a governor. We know what the protocol is. Typically, in order to activate the National Guard, a governor makes a request. There's an actual law in this country that stipulates members of the military serving on the streets of America. And these folks do not even remotely care about the law or customs or things along those lines. Many people are suggesting that this is really his focus of trying to use the military to stop peaceful protesters across the board because of what took place in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it's important for people to know and realize that there's nothing that I take more seriously than any of us as chief executives of our state take more seriously than the safety of our people. We believe in making sure that our people are safe, and we have multiple means and tools to be able to ensure that our people are safe in their communities, in their own homes, in their neighborhoods, in their own skin. And there are scales of escalation, right? So we know that we not only have local police authorities, we have state authorities as well, and that the governor has the unique authority to be able to activate a National Guard because each governor is the commander-in-chief of their state's National Guard. I take a deep sense of pride and humble responsibility to be the commander-in-chief of the Maryland National Guard. And so when I make decisions about when I'm activating the Guard, whether it is for a flooding event, whether it is for unrest, regardless of the reason, I am doing it in coordination with my local jurisdictions because they also have the best understanding on the ground of what is required, and then I can turn around and make the decision. What we saw here was a decision being made that completely usurped any type of input that came from the local authorities and the people on the ground. And so I have no problem with the idea that we have to make sure that people are safe, that we have to be a state that doesn't just guarantee rights, but also that follows the laws. I get that. But I also understand this, that the decisions on things like the escalation to a National Guard level are decisions that are made in coordination with my local jurisdictions. That did not happen. And then especially when you're talking about the activation of active duty Marines, asking them to do policing activities inside of communities, it's not just unprecedented. To your point that you made earlier, Roland, it's a violation of posse comitatus, and so of the law. And so once again, this is just seeing how the administration is continuing to try to use tools of intimidation. But I want to be very clear that in Maryland and in all those other places, like, I will not be intimidated, and we will not be intimidated. That we will make sure that our people are safe, but we'll also make sure that the laws are being followed.
Got to ask you about this military parade happening in Washington, D.C. It's going to cost upwards of $100 million. Many folks are saying this is nothing more than celebrating Donald Trump's birthday as opposed to the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. I talked to a retired two-star general yesterday. He said, and normally when they have military parades, they are designed to actually be family affairs, community affairs. And so it's about really the Army families in the community. That's really, if you're going to be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, you don't just celebrate the troops and the tanks and the missiles. You actually understand that when you serve in the U.S. Army or any branch of the government, branch of the military, your family is also serving. And so what do you make of this, what he is doing this weekend with this celebration? And what are you hearing from your fellow U.S. Army service members who are no longer serving?
I started my day this morning going down to Fort Meade, one of the active duty bases in my state, and then we did a 2.5-mile run in celebration of 250 years of the United States Army. Myself and over 1,000 other soldiers who are all out there, celebrating the 250th, and just thinking about the impact and the contribution that the United States Army has made to our society, that our society is what our society is. The freedoms that we enjoy are the freedoms that we enjoy because we had people who were willing to put on the uniform and defend those freedoms. And I think about what is being done tomorrow. And again, it cannot be said that, we're just trying to conflate his birthday and the 250 Army birthday, because they said that. We're just repeating a coincidence that they happen to highlight. And so my only point is this. If you want to talk about, or if you want to celebrate veterans, then don't cut the Department of Veterans Affairs, which you just did. If you really want to highlight veterans, then don't do things like lay off thousands of federal workers, knowing the fact that 1 in every 3 federal worker is a military veteran. If you really want to celebrate veterans, don't do things like lay off people whose job, fire people whose job it is to make sure that our military veterans are getting a proper burial, or making sure that those veterans who are coming back home suffering from PTSD, that they are not getting their treatments cut. If you really want to celebrate veterans, then honor their service. Do not use it as a mechanism to try to honor yourself. And so I have a very real issue with this, and particularly being done in the guise of this is a celebration of the Army 250th, because I can think of a lot of better ways to being able to use that capital, those resources, that time, and that attention to be able to celebrate the men and women who are willing to serve on behalf of others than doing something like this, which in many ways, again, is almost it's almost offensive. Being able to see how you can spend time cutting the Department of Veterans Affairs, but then simply say that you believe in the troops because you're willing to put on a parade on your birthday.
Last question for you. The military was desegregated in 1948 by President Harry Truman. We have seen historically African Americans serve with distinction in the U.S. Army and other branches as well. When you think about the importance of black soldiers, of course, people could talk about General Colin Powell, General Benjamin O. Davis, Sr. and Jr., and we can name so many others. Just what does this anniversary mean for African Americans who gave their life, who contributed to this country, many of them who did so knowing full well they didn't have full freedom when they came back home? What do you say about those folks on this 250th anniversary?
Some of the bravest soldiers that his country has seen have looked like you and me, Roland. We're talking about people who are willing to fight and risk their lives, and many gave their lives on behalf of a country that was not willing to sacrifice on behalf of the individual. When I think about the military, we're talking about an organization, and again, I'm a very proud military veteran. I'm a very proud combat veteran. I am a deep patriot, and I believe in this country, flaws and all. And I believe in this country because I know its history, not because I ignore it. And I think about the fact that you had desegregation take place in the military before it even took place in society. I think about the fact that you had military generals before you had Black Fortune 100 CEOs. The military, in many ways, was the chance for us to be able to shine, even in a country that oftentimes did not give us the opportunity to shine in other ways. And so the military has always helped to lead the charge when it came to opening up angles and opportunities for so many people within our society. And despite the fact that we had people who came and served, and when the military passed a GI Bill, they were literally saying, we will pass out a GI Bill unless you're Black. So the fact that we've continued to sacrifice on behalf of this country, to serve on behalf of this country, to make this country better, I think the importance of celebrating the 250 for the Army is not just about the contributions the Army has made, but it is about also celebrating the individuals who made the contribution to the Army. And why it's so important for us to remember our history, why it's so important for us for our history to be lifted up. I think about in the state of Maryland, where we are watching how Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, is going around banning history and banning books on military bases and on our service academy. We're in the state of Maryland. What have we done? We've banned the banning of books, where you cannot do that in the state of Maryland. So this becomes a time for us to really embrace the power of this history, the unevenness of the history, with a core understanding that action is required, repair is required. But it takes people who are willing to be true public servants and willing to be true soldiers in this moment in order to make those things happen.
Governor Wes Moore, always a pleasure to have you on the show, Frat.
Great to see you, Frat. God bless, man.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.